It's Sunday night. Welcome to All Lacrosse Live. I'm Gary Groob in Toronto, and with me, as always, I have Shawn Slaght and Moose Jaw. Shawn, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Thanks, Gary.
Awesome. And I have Muffler Mike over in Connecticut. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing good.
I would love to say the same. It's been a rough week, and I'm not even talking about the Rock. If any of you have ever experienced vertigo, you'll know where I'm at right now because you're all over the place, and so am I. It's been a weird week, but I'm glad you're all with us. We got a great show for you. We're going to be doing a little bit of ALL, and we're going to be doing a whole lot of NLL recapping and seeing what's up in the future there. A couple of surprises this week, and a couple ugly things in there. We got the good, the bad, and they're very ugly, and what more can we say about that? But before we get rolling, of course, remember all episodes are streamed live across Facebook, Instagram Live, Twitter, YouTube, and also Twitch. Remember to hit the subscribe, follow, and like buttons. Always share. Please enjoy our affiliates, which include the Pat Bernard Show, Steel Steps, The Attacking Third, a lot of soccer and football post-game shows, CFL shows as well as the entire lineup from Streampunk Entertainment. If you missed a show, no worries. You can grab all the podcasts on YouTube on either Streampunk Sports, Streampunk Cinema, Streampunk Lacrosse, all across all the time for our shows for the entire library, as well as retro games, interviews, library of shows, as well as a whole lot more. Remember, you can stay up to date on all sports by visiting us on Facebook, on visiting us on Instagram, and on visiting us on streampunkent.com. All right. Well, just before we head into the NLL, the ALL East finally got rolling again this week. And, we had 3 games on the docket. We started Friday night, and we had Six Nations heading over to Brampton. And, the Brampton Express picked up where they left off last year, and they beat Six Nations 17-13 in a really, really interesting game. This game was tied, I believe, on 7 different occasions. And really, it was only until about near the end of the fourth quarter when Brampton put together a 4-goal run and took this game 17-13. Very, very interesting game. But, boy, the ALL is back, and it is just terrific lacrosse. On Saturday afternoon, Whitby went over to the track to face the Toronto Monarchs. Of course, Whitby, the defending champions. And they did what Whitby does. They went from pillar to post, really. They got out 6-0 in this game, 7-1 at the half, en route to winning 16-8 over Toronto. So look out. Whitby's got another fantastic team. It's up to the rest of the league to really sit there and knock them off their perch. The other game was in the evening, and it was over back at the Memorial Arena in Brampton, and it had Oswego facing the Peterborough Timbermen. Now, both teams last year had a little bit of trouble. Peterborough finally was getting out of the doldrums in the end of the season, and they took that and ran with it. They beat Oswego 21-11 in this game, and it looks like Oswego is running into the same issues they ran into last year, which was, of course, the defense didn't give them 60 minutes last year, and it looks like it's hopefully that they're just with a new bunch of people just gelling together. But offensively, they also weren't putting out that much either. So let's see if Oswego can right the ship. They face Toronto next week at the track on Saturday afternoon. And then a couple of games on Sunday over at the ILA is Whitby versus Paris and Oshawa versus Six Nations. So Oshawa and Paris were the both teams that sat out this week. So we'll have a good look at seeing what they're up to start the year. In the ALL West, there were a pair of games on Saturday at the Langley Event Center. And the Sea Spray and Blackfish got together with the Blackfish topping them 16-14. And the Eagles facing the Grizzlies, and we were talking about this before, excuse me, that this would be a good telltale. Well, the Eagles doubled the Grizzlies 18-9.
Wow.
That's interesting. So the Grizzlies are in a world of hurt right now, and we'll see if they can right the ship. Okay, just trying to pick out the lineup, but interestingly, this was Del Bianco wasn't even in the lineup. Braden Wandler started. He was relieved by Ryden Bremner. Rough day at the office, shall we say.
Yeah, no kidding.
But again, if you're going to get peppered with, 61 shots, this is going to happen. Keegan Kostiuk was the first start for the Shooting Eagles. He had 2 goals and 4 assists. Cody Adamson, also 2 goals, 4 assists for the Shooting Eagles. And Kyle Brunch had 3 goals, 2 assists for the Grizzlies as the third star in that game. If we look quickly at the standings, the Shooting Eagles are 5-0. The Sea Spray are 2-3. Blackfish are 2-3, and the Grizzlies are 1-4. So we'll see how that all plays out. In the ALL East, Peterborough, Whitby, and Brampton, of course, are tied for first. Oshawa, Paris haven't played, and Six Nations, Toronto, and Oswego are sitting at 0-1. So it's going to be an interesting year. I think it's going to be a great time to go check out ALL games. Eduardo's with us. How are you, Eduardo? Good to have you with us, bud. Alrighty. Why don't we, before we do any of that nonsense, we'll go to the pick'ems, guys. Speaking of nonsense. And of course, we're just lighting it up, aren't we, guys? Shawn had the best
early in the season
with a 3-2. That puts him at 5-5 and leading the pack.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah. Mike and I had the same week as we did in week 1 at 2-3. Pat joined us at 2-3. And Caden had a little rougher of a week at 1-4. Of course, his one win, was watching his beautiful Albany Firewolves just absolutely maul the Toronto Rock. But we'll get into that in about a minute. But early on, yes, it is early on. And you won't see me picking the Toronto Rock again until somebody goes inside and scores. If we happen to have any more of this outside stuff, they're in Mississauga, so they're not shooting from there anymore. They're now shooting from Hamilton.
How's that Mark Matthews trade looking?
Awesome. He got 0 points. He had 2 assists, right?
2 assists.
Yeah.
I think he may have had 1 or 2 assists.
Yeah, well, Josh Tolwick is all the offense, right? He had 3 of the 4, and Luke Robinson had the other one. But boy, oh boy. Well, we're talking about it. So you know what? I'm gonna bring in the score just hurts, man. It just hurts. 15-4. And it was actually not that close. That's the sad thing. I think it was 3-0 after the anthems. But I'm gonna bring in our Wolves Den aficionado to help me call this game a little bit. But let's welcome Caden Blint to the show. Caden, how are you?
Oh, howdy doody.
He's beaming, guys. Look at that.
I had to. Come on.
Howdy doody. That sounds like Toronto Rock offense.
Yeah, I mean, I had to. The only thing beaming out of my weekend was boys coming away with a big W.
I gotta give Clarkey credit because he had his homework done for his team. Outside shooting, what's the best way to stop outside shooting? Get in on the hands, and he did. And all the outside shots went wide or high or in the crowd or in the bench or somewhere other than the vicinity of the net. This happened almost all game, and you could watch the Rock get more and more frustrated. Did it send any of them inside? No. But did they get more frustrated? Yes. Yeah. The first quarter really set the tone because you had one of each goal. I watched them score. Toronto, when you're short and you're really hurting, what do? You take 3 penalties in the span of the first 2 minutes to make sure that you are coming from behind. And that's exactly what they did. They followed the script beautifully. And of course, Albany got in on a power play goal. They then got in on an even strength goal, and just to make it a trifecta, they added a shorthanded goal just to be fun. And what really made it interesting was the shorthanded goal was a carom off the backboards, catching your own rebound and scoring. The beautiful, gorgeous goal. But you could see it right there, and you could hear a hair drop. Never mind a pin drop. You could hear a hair drop over in a Paramount Fine Foods building there. All that raucous noise from before the game to nothing, not a thing, and it stayed that way all the way to the end. In fact, the only time anybody really got excited was when Nick Rose decided he wanted to fight Doug Jamieson after. Nothing like getting it done instead of shaking hands. Well, frustration is frustration. And I got to give credit to Alex Simmons, who was able to pull Dyson Williams back from taking a stupid penalty and trying to get into a fight with Elijah Gash, or any of the other ones that are trying to get into a fight with the toughest guy in the league and Bill Hostrauser, all trying to relieve a little bit of frustration. I really have to give Albany credit for not falling into any of these silly traps, because at this stage of the game, they didn't need any more goals. They were just trying to get to the end of the clock. And really, they did an A job, A or A plus job on number one, dissecting Toronto, taking advantage of a team that really had a lot of youth in there, and really putting together an excellent effort. They needed to come out with a big effort because everybody expected that after losing in overtime last week to Saskatchewan in an absolutely fantastic game. And they did. They put together a solid game. And if there was surprise, it was Sam Firth getting 5 goals in the second half. That was the one that got my eyebrows raised, because none of them were cheapies. Man, does he have a great shot. And he just had a chance to show it. And he was my first star of the game. And, Alex Simmons put together another great performance. He didn't even make the stars. Travis Longboat, with setting up play after play after play and doing all the digging, he was fantastic. And what can you say about Doug Jamieson? If anybody thinks that he's not a shoo-in at this stage, to be goaltender of the year, from what I've seen in the first 2 weeks, if he can keep this up and stay healthy, we'll be talking about the great season that Dougie had. Because, man, he faced 51 shots, 48 shots, somewhere in there, and 4 goals. 4 goals. That was a spectacular performance. And on top of things, if the back checking didn't frustrate him, when you actually got a shot through and Jameson's there like a wall, you tend to throw your arms up and go. Toronto's offense came from Josh Dollick. He had 3 goals, 2 assists from Mark Matthews. Well, Shawn.
How'd that trade work out for you? Yeah,
that's working out very well, isn't it? Yeah. Very well. Very well.
You're starting to see why they got rid of him, right?
Yeah, well, but then again, Chris Boucher, after he got hurt, really wasn't much of a factor either. So, and then Luke Robinson got his first NLL goal, so kudos to Luke for that one. So there are a few bright spots. Listening to the Rock press conference after the game, of course, they're disappointed, of course. And, of course, they do believe in each other and waiting for a few things to turn around and a few injuries to come back. But the thing that bothers me the most is the injuries, with the exception of Schreiber, isn't on offense. 4 of those guys are defense/transition. So everybody comes back, and I still see a problem with offense. But I saw that problem last year. The only difference was we had a guy like Lintner who would go inside and, smallest guy on the floor, but he's the one diving through the crease. Now you didn't bring him back, so you have nobody going through the crease. That's a pretty easy defense. If you're not going to go inside and make these guys actually have to work to stop you, and you don't want to pay the price to go in near the paint, so to speak, you're making your defensive team really an easier night than they have to have. Ken, I'm going to throw it over to you. What was your take on this this fabulous showing from Toronto.
Oh yeah, Toronto! What a fantastic night they
A
played out.
juggernaut,
You know,
weren't they? They were just a
yeah,
juggernaut.
absolutely. You know, everybody
Didn't
needs
think
to
they
be
could get worse,
scared
did
of them. If you're not scared of Toronto right now, well, then I don't know what are you? Happy to play them next week? I mean, I'd be happy to play them again. When do we play you guys again? Hold on, let's check the schedule. Anyway, no,
They got
They
Georgia,
don't. That's
they got
that's a
Georgia and
one-off.
Georgia next week, so it's going to get easier.
you know, Dougie 47 saves. Let's start with him. We talked last week about if Dougie can kind of start looking, more comfortable instead of it being like that 6 minutes, that 5 minutes, he can drop it to 2-3. He just did that. Like 4 goals, only 4 goals given up. That's amazing. Like, I don't know what else you can say about his performance. Obviously, we're looking at 2 great performances on the offensive side. Travis Longboat, a goal and 5 assists, and Sam Firth, 5 goals and assists, both putting up 6 points. But how can you not look at Dougie and say, and I get it, Gary, Sam putting up 5 goals in the second half was fantastic. I saw him looking at Dougie for my first star. 43 saves is amazing. And like you said, if he's going to continuously build up that fight to be goalie of the year, it's just going to continuously build off performances like that. And it's another great performance by Dougie that just solidifies it. And even in the loss against Saskatchewan last week, he still looked very good. I mean, a lot of those goals he would like back, obviously, but he looked very good.
Absolutely. Now,
Yeah,
what do you think about the coaching of Glenn Clark and the game plan?
Clark is the NLL head coach of the year from last year for a reason. Even in situations with a team that, don't forget, 2 years ago was bottom of the league. I mean, granted, you look at bottom of the league when you lose Joe Nardella, and Joe Nardella goes out last night, and wins 20 faceoffs.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. And that's a reason why we didn't win that year. You have him back the season after that, which was last year, and they were right back in a playoff spot, a championship contender. So Clark knows how to roll with the punches. He knows how to roll with the hits, and it's obviously of a game plan from last season. And with no Talon Rogers, obviously big injury, that kind of hurts Toronto, and not kinda, it does. Like, all the injuries you guys are playing with right now, it kills you. And Clarky was able to easily expose that. He was easily able to have the guys completely expose that. And Toronto has to go to the drawing board next week against Georgia, who I think just took away with the W. They just took the W, if I'm not mistaken.
In overtime,
So,
they beat San Diego.
So they're already going to be playing a 1-0 team. I think they are potentially about to go 2-0.
Yep. It's just funny. I'm listening to the Toronto faithful. Blaming Nick Rose for this loss. Toronto has scored 9 goals in 2 games. How many goals does a goaltender usually get in a game? It's funny enough that Nick Rose, I've watched him live. I've watched him score 4 goals. I happen to be at every one of the games that he scored, including in Albany when he scored. So it's just funny that he probably creates more offense than most. And I get it. Some of the goals are like, but he gave up 11 goals yesterday, and Holochuk gave up the other few in relief. But that wasn't the reason. Defense, yes, there was a number of gaffes there, but with 0 offense, if you only need to score 5 goals to win, you're putting your team in a real jackpot.
Let's not forget that Albany was without Nick Shaykowski this week as well. Losing him to injury was obviously a big loss, but even without Shaykowski, they're still able to hold Toronto to less than 5 goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I look at the Toronto lineup, and yes, I see a bunch of youth. But I also see guys like Mitch DeSnew. He was pretty silent last night. Phil Mazuka had one breakaway and transition, and Jamison stopped easily. Corey Small, I didn't even notice him on the floor. Chris Corbeil has had more trouble reeling in balls than I've ever seen him, and he was a vacuum cleaner in Saskatchewan. Chris Boucher, again, once he got hurt, it was a different guy. Dan Craig, invisible. The Iceman was invisible on the floor. Yeah, he had the only reason I knew he was there, he had 2 penalty minutes. According to stats, he had 5 shots on goal. Where they came from, I have no idea. Brian Cameron, he looked good in week 1. He was nowhere to be found in week 2. Elijah Gash, I knew he was around. He took a couple penalties, so I knew he was around. I really don't have a lot of great things to say about anybody on the team other than Dawick, because his first goal was actually diving through the crease. And, there was some effort, then back-to-back goals, and it looked like there was actually a little bit of life there. And then, of course, Albany put the hammer down, and that was the end of that. But at that stage, it was, I think, 7-3 or something like that. And there was still, hope. The Toronto Rock of old could reel off 4 goals, and we have a game. But not the version that's come out this year so far. And, yeah, again, we can talk about injuries until we're all blue in the face. But at some point, you're going to have to realize that things have to be different. Justin Martin, he had a great year last year. He had a great summer with 6 Nations. Won a Mann Cup. Invisible. The only thing that was holding the team together in some games last year was the transition game, and it was silent. They being Albany, absolutely stymied the transition game with their defensive schemes. And to me, that is brilliant. That's doing your homework. That's not waiting for it to come to you. That's you being proactive on how to win games. And that's going to take them a long way. Probably why I have them picked to go back to the finals and maybe even come away with a championship. Because it's that kind of thinking with that kind of athleticism and everybody with another year under their belts that are going to be the reason why this team succeeds. I'll open it up. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. My big thought at this point is, knowing that they're going to be going into Georgia next week, looking like they're going to end up being 0-3.
When is the time to go?
How many times last year have we been on the podcast seeing Colorado do twice as much as Toronto did this weekend, but people are calling for fire Pat Coyle, trade Dylan Ward, all those. So at what point does this erroneous calling for Nick Rose to be, released or traded or something like that turn to we need to get a new coach? Because we also heard it in Philly last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
After their season.
Well, the faithful, by the time Ottawa rolls around back into the Paramount Fine Foods on the 28th, it won't be a very Christmassy mood around there. Joyeux Noël, right?
Yeah.
Bonne année.
And
very Happy New Year-ish.
Without rehashing too much of, the stuff we did last year, between Paul Day and Pat Coyle and stuff like that, Again, who would you replace Matt Sawyer with if the decision's made?
Yeah, and it's funny because they don't take any
Bruce
shifts.
Codd with if you're getting rid of the whole staff and not just Matt Sawyer. It's a tough it's a tough sell as much as the fans want to rise up and.
I just would like to see some different offensive schemes myself. I have watched this. I watched it a bunch of years ago. where it was set a pick and take it a long shot, and it didn't work then. And I've watched it again, and it's set a pick and take a long shot,
Same
and
broken
maybe it
record.
gets through and
Yeah.
hopefully catches a corner. And they've been lucky enough to have enough talented guys that can pick corners. But, when teams are ready for it and have maybe this would be a little bit of a wake-up call to the team that, yes, they can scheme against it as well. You think if you're far out enough that nobody's coming out after you, well, if they can get on your hands and they're young enough and athletic enough, this happens. And we watched it not once, we watched it 2 weeks in a row where all the big guns were silenced. So I will leave it at that, and hopefully we have something more, or I have something more to add about how wonderful it was and how incorrect I was next week. But as it stands right now, my oh my, that's
Not looking good.
that
Not good at all.
was a rough couple of hours.
What are you talking about, guys? It looked wonderful. Three for 7 on the power play. I want to point out that's 2 weeks in a row that they've gone 3 for 7 on the power play. That's something that I think Clark's going to hopefully look at in practices leading up against the Calgary team that took.
Mike, that's improved by 3.
Yeah, oh
14.
yeah. Last
Because
year,
last year they were going 0 for 7 on
Last
the power
year
play.
was
Last year
It's
the power was bad. Yeah.
dismal on the power play.
By the way, they had 2 shorthanded goals too. So let's add that to the mix as well.
Yeah.
It became a point where almost like football, you were going to look at the ref and go, "We want to decline the penalty." Thanks.
Last year watching them, going 0 for 7 on those power plays, I'm like, can we just decline it? Because at this point, I feel more comfortable just
Even stronger.
Yeah.
5-on-5. Yeah.
No power play, please. Hey, I'll take a 4-on-5. Why not? We can score shorthanded.
As proven yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Watkinson had a gorgeous goal in transition. Just a gorgeous goal in transition, shorthanded.
That's one of his big specialties that I noticed from last season is that he's able to get those huge shorthanded goals, but those huge in transition shorthanded goals. He got a lot of those last season in the third and fourth quarter, those late game goals that you're always kind of looking for. Just, pad the stats, push your team closer to that victory. And that's exactly what Colton does, and that's exactly why he has the C on his jersey.
Right. Well, you had another game that you were covering, and it was just an absolute, my God.
Barn burner.
I looked at that game, and it was 10-3 for Halifax. And I thought, well, boy, this is going to be, ugly. This is before Toronto played theirs. we cornered the market ugly over here.
We all did pick Halifax.
We did.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Yep.
And I believe the message I had on my pick'ems was goaltending. I give the goaltending edge to Halifax.
Yeah.
Warren Hill. He did have a shutout in the summer. Right? But wow, what a comeback and what a homecoming for Doby and Dixon at 5 goals apiece. Let me just throw up the graphic for it, and there you are.
Not only 5 goals, but they both put up 5 goals and 4 assists, which is kind of even crazier.
Yep, absolutely. Just insane. Just insane. Well, Hayden, talk to us. What the heck happened in this game?
Like you said, when it was 10-3, I thought, okay, Halifax is just going to continuously run over. And then 7 consecutive goals, a 7-goal run for Calgary in this game, which is something that I noticed is that anytime that Halifax was trying to push for that extra momentum, for that extra goal, for that extra, we're going to steal this away from you guys, Calgary wouldn't let them. Calgary was, they were defiant. They were like, you can't kill us. And they proved it. I mean, a 7-goal run, and then they were down again going into the fourth, down 3, and then a 5-goal run to win the game. It's 2 huge runs like that Albany has to look out for going into next week's game, that they hopefully are able to just stop these runs, stop these momentum shifts, and keep all the momentum for themselves. Obviously, both teams coming off a win, and we always say it's a game of runs, and it is a game of runs.
Mhm.
So it's Albany hoping that next week they can go into it, stop their runs like that, stop their momentum shifts, and shut down Dane Doby, shut down Curtis Dixon. But let's also look at Jesse King, 10 points. Shut him down as well. Obviously, you're asking to shut down three of their probably more prolific players on this team. It was my first Halifax and first Calgary game that I've watched. At least this season, I really only watched Albany games. So I don't even think I saw Calgary play last season. So, getting to see Dane Dobby do what he does, getting to see Curtis Dixon do what he does, it's great to continue to watch.
It's guys like Tanner Cook, though, that just absolutely, they don't get the credit because of some of the other names there. But boy, oh boy, if you watch Tanner Cook, he is always in the thick of it. And he was rewarded with a bunch yesterday. And he was a
5 points.
big reason why that this team turned it around in the second half.
Something I want to look at for Calgary is they had 80 loose balls in the game, which is great. Justin, I hope I'm saying this right. Ignacio, 18.
Ignacio.
18 of those loose balls for Calgary. That's
Yep.
huge. That's going to be a great competition between him and Nardella next week for loose ball runs. Because as I saw, Nardella leads the league in loose balls. I didn't see how close Justin was right behind him. But I do know that Nardella is leading it in loose balls at the moment.
Well, yes, we'll take away the 20 from yesterday, but again, that's a little bit of a skewed number because of course TD Erlin, who was number 2 in the league last year, wasn't playing, so that does change things a little bit when you're going against Josh Jubenville instead of TD Erlin. But needless to say, numbers are numbers, right? But Ignacio, he had a great game, 18 loose balls. But that's not take away. Also, Dawson Theed had a game of games too. He had 10 loose balls for Halifax. I just was, the end of the game. You look at the last minute, and if Halifax is able to stop Ethan Ticehurst from scoring, we go to overtime, right? On a last-second goal from Dawson Theed. So that's how nip and tuck this game was. It's just a bizarre thing. But again, the guys who were supposed to score on either team scored.
Yeah.
I'm on this thing today. The guys who were supposed to score kind of scored.
The guy who had to do the thing,
Stuck
they
in my
did it
craw.
right.
Hey, I don't know why it's stuck in my craw today, but it's
It's funny Caden brings up the runs, right? Because it reminds me a lot of the kind of the Bandits in the last few years where, they kind of just stick around, and all of a sudden, bang, 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 bang. They go on this huge run, and then it's over.
Yeah, great point. And usually in the second half.
Yeah.
They usually stay close in the first half, and in the second half, right out of the gate, boom. And what did Calgary do right out of the gate in the third? Boom, 3 goals. And that changed the complexion. Yes, Halifax came back with 3, but it changed the complexion. It gave Calgary, don't forget, Calgary had 4 running into the half. So that was a 7-goal run. If that doesn't change the entire complexion of a game, they started, it was 11-4. They finished it, it was 11-11. We have a whole different game, don't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to look
your chops, right?
I want to look at Halifax, and even with the loss, Randy Stats and Clark Peterson both put up 9 points. Randy Stats 1 goal, 8 assists, and Peterson 2 goals, 7 assists. You mentioned Dawson Theed. Let's not forget Thomas Hogarth. He also put up 4 goals, 2 assists. Both those guys put up 6 points in an attempt to get Halifax back into the win column. It was also, I think it was James Knox who had the last of the big push.
Yeah. He had a great game, and man, what a great pickup that was.
Yep.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to have a
I think we're going to talk about the Panther City effect with every team just about. So.
Yeah. So I was about to say going 0-2 like Toronto, even like I know it's only 2 games, but because everyone got stronger with that dispersal draft, that could be a tough hole to dig out of going 0-2. Any team really, yeah.
Especially with no divisions. Divisions was a savior because you only had to leapfrog a couple of teams. Here, when you're sitting at 14th, and you have to leapfrog 6 other teams to hope to get in the playoffs. Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, I know it's only 2 games, but I mean, it just makes that much more tougher, right?
Just like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I will counter that slightly. Not the most effective, but we saw 2 years ago. We saw Georgia go 0-7 and nearly make the playoffs. But yeah, to that point.
It can be done for sure.
I think at this point you need to knock down that 7 to 5 losses.
Might I remind you who was on the Georgia team? I don't see any Lyle Thompson.
Georgia scored goals.
I don't see any Shane Jacksons. I don't see any Brian Coles at the moment. I can go right down if you'd like, but it just something has to change in the psyche and in the dressing room. Yes, it's a tight knit dressing room. Yes, I know a lot of them, and I know that they have their pride and they have and they're working towards it. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm just picking on the team, but something has to change in the blueprinting of how they're going to map out their offense. Everybody knows in the league, everybody knows in the fans of the league what they're going to do and how they're doing it, and they haven't proven any of us wrong in it yet. So until that changes, and I can go, wow, did you see that? Half the game they spent inside. They were banging around inside. They were knocking out guys left, right, and center and setting picks from the inside. And they were, oh my God, I almost thought Tokonanico was over on Toronto. I haven't been able to say that.
Yeah. Well, hey, maybe my message is the message. Say, hey guys, we get to 0-5. You might as well pack it in.
Yeah, because
that's what I meant. Like it's 2 games. It's definitely possible, but you just make it that much harder on yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, because I think having the team dissolve, having every other team get stronger because they're basically absorbing a
very good team,
level team. I think what we saw 2 years ago with Georgia definitely can't happen this year.
Right.
And at this point, I think 5 losses is going to be the cutoff. So any team, and that's any team that's winless right now. If they reach 0-5, I got to think the likelihood is,
they're sellers.
Just about 0.
Right. Well, Caden, we will see you next week when you were talking to us about Calgary yet again. Well, you're going to be a Calgary expert.
But this time it's going to be an Albany win. I know this week Halifax is taking the travel to Shawn's neck of the woods, taking on the Rush. So
that doesn't get any better for Halifax either.
No,
Halifax gets a real good team also.
That's going to be a good game.
There's a couple of teams that are going to be sitting there going, what are we going to do here? So that's going to be a great game, though.
Yeah, and I think Caden gets another game. I believe he has Colorado at San Diego. It's a chance for the Mammoth to go 3-0.
Yeah, which leads us into where we're headed next for the out of order, but our Friday night game. And of course, I had the Mammoth. But
good for you.
Yeah, I had Mammoth too. So.
Yeah, well, I just figured, what I saw in week 1, that wasn't a fluke. It had to do with Dylan Ward. It had to do with the offense coming back and a healthy Ryan Lee in there, as well as the other group that has been holding it together. And there's just too much talent on the team for this team to be floundering around the bottom 2 or 3. And Vegas, as much as I've liked their improvements, they also took losses. And they have you're going to have to give them a couple of weeks to figure it out together because preseason goes by like this. And really, by the time the lineup is set, You're already on the verge of week 1. And do they look better than they have? Yes, they've looked better than they ever have. But still, give them a couple of weeks and those L's are going to turn into W's. Should be just about the time when they face Toronto. Seems to be everybody's ill right now, Oh, don't worry, they're there in the next 2 weeks. So.
You gotta keep an eye out for Jack
And
Hanna.
I was
for
gonna say,
Vegas.
what? It's funny. It's kind of a similar scenario to that last game too, because there's 6 lead changes until the second half, and it was a really tight game until a 7-goal run by Colorado kind of pulled them ahead there. Where it's just kind of that one lapse.
And if anybody has an answer for Zed Williams, an NFL linebacker who's going to come at you at 100 miles an hour at 6'4" and 220 or 230 or whatever he's tipping the scales at right now, good luck to you. You see that coming at you, and you tend to think about, well, did I dot the I?
Yeah. And any questions of Ryan Lee's health? I mean, 3 goals, 4 assists. He's back in fine shape, and like you're talking, Dylan Ward looks like he turned back the clock with 46 saves. I mean, he was peppered with 55 shots in this game. Colorado's outshot. He looked like the Dylan Ward of old.
Yep, it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. When things go right, things go right. And again, you take a look at the Colorado lineup, and with them waiting a bunch of years now for this all to come back on, having Will Malcolm back, that's huge. Yeah. Tim Edwards playing like Tim Edwards can, having, we have, Damon Edwards made his debut with Colorado, and, veteran, from Toronto and former captain of the Riptide. And, you don't think he's going to make a big impression? Not a man of a jumping up and down kind of guy, but when he speaks, people listen. And, you have that kind of leadership in there. Robert Hope, 13 loose balls. You lead by example. And of course, you have Jason Gibson, Zed Williams, Eli McLaughlin, Connor Robinson. The list goes on and on and on.
I was going to say, even the name that's stuck out to me is, even though he had only had a goal and assist, is Thomas Vela. He always seems like he's around the ball at some point in the offensive end, just making something happen. I don't think you can discount him. Yeah,
5 loose balls. Making his spots wherever he can. This is a team that have next guy up, and this is how they won a championship. The next guy up mentality. Because remember how many injuries they took, and really, it showed the character of a team which is still, for the most part, together. And yes, they took some major hits, hence them being in the doldrums last year. But even the year that they lost to Buffalo, don't tell me that everybody in Buffalo wasn't scared to death of Game 3 until they had a big enough lead to actually start celebrating. Because being in the square before the game, everybody remembered the year before when nobody thought Colorado could win, and they silenced HSBC. 19,000 people that made not a peep. So this is the same makeup, and this is the same coaching staff and the same blueprinting. We're going back to blueprinting and how to put together the offense, because that's my thing this week, is talking about, it's one thing to have all the pieces. It's also knowing where to put them and how to set them.
Yeah.
And giving them the guidance of what to do and where to do it. And we're watching some of the best coaches in the league rising to the top. And in a year like this, where you have such a talent pool on every single team, it's going to come down to the X's and O's and the coaching. This is where it's going to be the most exposed of any year that I can remember in the last 30.
Yeah, and I was just looking on the other side with Las Vegas. He had Jack Hanna with 4 goals and 3 assists, but after that, nobody really showed up.
Yeah, if Donville all he's doing is assisting, that's not why they got him there.
Yeah,
he's putting it in the net.
I know he's a rookie with Adam Poitras, but I mean, he was supposed to be a highly touted rookie, and he's only putting in 1 goal and a couple assists. I think you're trying to looking out for a little bit more from him.
Just like the transition game when you got Shane Simpson, right?
Yeah.
He got 1 goal, But really, 8 loose balls. You know, he did his job there, but he only had 1 shot on net. 1 for 1. What happens if he had 5 shots? Was he 5 for 5? And this becomes
I might say, you know, that maybe it's a little too early to kind of put out the judgment on Patois because he, you know, the first game he was kind of used more defensively, and this game, you know, he played on offense. And I did notice, I believe both games he's been on the face-off team.
Okay.
You know, so he's been lining up for face-offs. So I gotta wonder, you know, going back to blueprinting again, whether Shawn Williams is just trying to figure out, like, hey, how can I best use this guy?
Right.
You know. So.
But there's a lot of that. You know, Kyle Killen had 1 goal.
Yeah, and
I
think
no points.
Dylan Kinnear, no points.
They kind of have a little bit of a weird roster makeup where they have, you know, something like 9 forwards, and I'm not sure if Patois is, you know, being included in that. So, you know, we've heard rumors that they might be the ones who wanted to experiment with going back to the mill style of play and that two-way, you know, where it's more shifty.
Dave, thanks as always for calling.
Hey, Dave, thanks for tuning in. So I don't know. I my only concern, I guess, with that would be is Shawn Williams trying to tinker too much?
Yeah, again, you're talking about that blueprint, right? And especially with all how good these teams are.
Because it's like if you want to take your
hard to be
roster and
tinkering.
you want to try to have them be all two-way, but then you're playing
these
Patois
top teams.
you're playing Patois and you're
and these top teams are really not tinkering. They know what their roster is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I say, it's more alarming in a couple of weeks. I give them a couple of week grace because the team has changed quite a bit from its makeup, and it's got quite a bit younger and more athletic. So they have all the pieces, and they have a hell of a coach, and his track record is a mile long of playing and coaching, of being a winner. So I'll leave it in Shawn Williams' capable hands. But a couple of weeks down the road.
And then
you can't really blow it up a third or fourth time now, can I?
If we want to use my cutoff of 5 losses, is kind of, the point of no return. Yeah. The next 2 weeks, they have a home and home with Philly. So,
right.
We keep talking about it. Doesn't get any easier for anyone.
Yeah.
Philly, they can score, but they also give up a lot. And of course, what was the big news out of Philly this week? Callum Crawford being released.
Yeah.
Another head scratcher because, he had a goal and 4 assists in his first game, and you release him, which leads me to believe is the same thing that has hampered him throughout his career, hence him being in almost every team, is chemistry in dressing rooms. That's A. B, availability for games. Because at Philadelphia, I'm assuming that Paul Day wants the chemistry to be there game in, game out. And if you're saying that you can play this, but you can't play that, and you can do this, you can't do that, let alone the Comcast looking at expense going, we're flying a guy in from Oklahoma every single game, which is like a road game, no matter if it's a home game or not. Okay. So there's a lot of little things there. You mean with all the players that didn't make rosters, we can't find somebody that can get us those kind of points? Let alone who did the best out of that Panther City little swoop? Philadelphia. So a roster spot gone to Crawford. As much as his output is fantastic, but if it's not a consistent output, there's a lot of guys there that can do that consistently or close, who are much younger and can probably live in market. So, but let's keep going, guys. We had another really, really interesting one. Caden, you're welcome to stick around and continue along with the chat. Love having you here.
I do know Pat's gonna talk his wings coming in somewhat soon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, we're going to go ahead over to Rochester. And, of course, the Buffalo Bandits opened their season on the road, which is interesting since they are the defending champions and don't get a chance until week 3 to raise their banner. I would
we kind of did the same thing to them last year, too.
Should be a week 1 thing. I just, call me crazy, but I think that should be a week 1 thing that your banner gets up there. But they head into Rochester, close, very close, only a 45-minute drive down a snowy highway. I know that highway very, very well. And they went into Rochester. Now, me personally, I admit I took Rochester in this one for a couple of reasons. Number one, I thought what I saw in week 1, I was very enthused at. And I thought they addressed a number of the issues that they had. And I also thought that Buffalo standing pat would hamper them a little bit. I was wrong. Buffalo comes in, and with a big fourth quarter, really. Dane Smith with 3 goals, 8 assists. Buffalo wins 15-7. Mike?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll start with is the score is not at all indicative of how close the game was. It was 7-6 after 3 quarters. So, yeah, so I'm sorry if I'm going to show my usual bias here, but, Rochester stayed with them, pretty much step for step for 3 quarters, and it just kind of fell apart in the 4th. So, but that's also indicative of what we, Shawn's already mentioned it, what we've typically seen from Buffalo, over their run, the last 5, 6, 7 years, where typically, even in close games, when it gets late, they're able to find that extra gear and get the run that pretty much, puts the game away. So, but, we had the usual suspects for Buffalo. Dane Smith kind of picking up where he left off last season. 3 goals, 8 assists. Kyle Buchanan had a hat trick in the game. Reigning MVP, Josh Byrne had 2 goals, 3 assists. Tahoka Nanakoke, 2 goals and an assist. Chris Cloutier had 2 goals, and Matt Vins 54 saves. So
he's looking mid-season, isn't he? That was the other thing I was hitting on in my pick'ems, was that I figured that it would take him a couple of weeks to adjust, since he didn't do any summer ball whatsoever.
He did not. So
that might have been the good thing for him, because he comes in fresh. But take a look at the year that Dane Smith has had. He won an NLL championship. He won a Mann Cup. And then he wins a World Championship gold. Not a bad year.
Nope.
Yeah. That's after winning a championship the year before with Buffalo and a Mann Cup. Not a bad year and a half. Winners win.
Yeah.
I want to go back to what Shawn was talking about earlier when we were talking about the Calgary run. And this game just kind of showed exactly what you said. They keep within the score. They keep the score close the whole night. And then that 4th quarter, they burst out. And they take that huge lead. And they're like, well, we can't come back from that. And that's exactly what happened. They just
that's Buffalo's MO. Yeah.
It demoralizes the opponent. So no matter who it is.
And it's from everybody. It's not just from Dane Smith. It's not just from Josh Byrne. You got Cloutier. You got Kyle Buchanan. You've got Robinson. Paul Dawson even added a goal.
Yeah,
just for fun. Everybody.
Well, that's the thing. Like you're talking about Dane Smith's 11 points. 8 of them were just assists alone. I mean, it wasn't all him. He was a playmaker out there as well.
Right. But when he needed him to score, because remember it was 2-1 in the second, and he put together 2 goals.
He can do that too, though, right? Yeah.
It's 4-1, and that's how the half is. And it's a whole different theory.
Well, that's the thing. Exactly. He can score, but he can also move the ball. How do you stop a guy like that?
Yeah, I mean, take away the 2 empty net goals, and he's in on 11 of the 13, actual goals,
Yeah.
that required a little more effort.
We talk about demoralizing. I want to go back to that. It is demoralizing how the way Buffalo plays. They just grind you down, they push you down, they beat you down. But how can it also not be demoralizing playing against Dane Smith and Josh Byrne together? That's kind of also being like, you're going to go out there and you're going to see those two guys together. All right, I'm already kind of ready to give up.
And then you think you have a scoring chance, and you can run into a guy like Matt Vince in goal. How frustrating is that?
It feels like it's like a cheat. It feels like it's a cheat. It's like, all right, I'm just gonna trade all my low assets and get the best players. They still just seem to continue to get better with all of their young players.
Yeah, and I mean Rochester had some decent scoring chances, some quick sticks and stuff that, Vince was there, made the saves, I'm sure there's a few he'd want back, the narrow angle goal from Fields that was shorthanded that went between the wickets. He'd certainly want back, but if you're a Buffalo fan, you've certainly got to be stoked. You took one away from one of your biggest rivals on the road to start. They'll be back in a few weeks. Week 4 maybe? Is it week 4 that they play again in Buffalo? I forget, but. For Rochester, not a whole lot of bright spots. Ryan Smith was held without any points, I believe. He might have had an assist or two. Ryan Lanchberry led the way, 2 goals, 2 assists. Connor Fields had a pair of goals, including that shorthanded one. Thomas McConvey and Turner Evans both had a goal and 2 assists. Riley Hutchcraft, 47 saves. So, another I guess I'd still call it a solid performance considering who he was playing.
Yeah.
And
it's week 5, Mike. Week 5.
Week
5 they play together.
Okay. All right. And considering the number of shots he faced, if there's one bright spot I'm taking away from Rochester, both teams went 0-4 on the power play. Mm-hmm. So, I'm thinking that
even on the face-offs.
Yeah, the penalty kill was solid. So,
absolutely.
Very close, even on the face-off, 16-10. That was, a close fight for the face-off dot as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're doing it with without Joe Post. Taylor Jensen's kind of taking over the face-offs, and he's holding his own. So that's a plus.
And only going to get stronger.
And he's just going to get better. He's just going to get better week in. This is week 1, so it's obviously just only 1 week of play. Next week is just going to probably get better. I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit, maybe 20 face-off wins if they even get that far.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, that brings us to our last game of the week, and this one was just a slobber knocker. This thing was just an absolute masterpiece until the very end, and that was Georgia and San Diego getting together, and we knew it was 2 upper echelon teams, and we knew we were in for a really great, skillful performance. But boy, oh boy, Georgia pulls it out in overtime. Lyle outduels Hellier in OT thriller. Q scores a game winner. And as soon as it got into Andrew Q's stick, for some reason, I just figured it was going, and it did. Because I've watched that goal, I don't know how many times over his career. In fact, the last time I watched that one, I believe I was in Rochester for the Georgia-Rochester game, and it was that. And I was with about 20 seconds left in the game, and exactly the same idea. So, if you don't think it was blueprinted... And I love the Georgia coaching staff. They've all been friends of mine for a lot of years and know them well. And, Sean Ferris as a defensive coach, if you don't think he's already scheming for what's coming up next week against Toronto, you're crazy.
Yeah.
We saw 13 goals in that second quarter between San Diego and Georgia, and that just shows how much of a barn burner this one was as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, it was one of those where nobody was out of it at any given point, no matter what. And it was right from the word go. This thing was a terrific game, and both goalies looked stunning. Now, Ridley Early looked a lot better than he did in week 1. He held them in for good chunks of that game.
Yeah.
37 saves on the night. Dobson turned aside 41.
And he had just an absolute heck of a fourth quarter. If he didn't have just a quarter of quarters, this thing doesn't go to overtime.
Right.
He was just absolutely lights out. As Dobson has been over the last few years. But boy, oh boy, money goaltenders come in when the time is needed. And boy, did he ever look good. But a name that pops into mind in this game for Georgia, it's not one that we talk about often, Seth Oakes. He had a terrific game. He was everywhere. And he was, you talk about the player that does things when needed. He had only 1 loose ball, but he had 2 goals and an assist. He had 5 shots on net. He took the relief off of the guys like Lyle Thompson, like even Joey Capito, for that matter, who was, tied up in knots for a good part of that game. Again, doing homework and making sure that the pieces that are going to kill you don't kill you. Right? But he had and a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about aren't on the stat sheet because he set great picks. He was always in the mix. His name popped up more than most throughout that broadcast. Just interesting little tidbits like that. And that's what wins you games. It's what happens off ball more than what happens on ball. It's going to win you these things. But, Caleb Benedict, as first we've seen of him, he was hurt all last year, had a couple of assists, 6 loose balls. We'll rough it up as well at 5 penalty minutes. So to me, that's a check column of drafting correctly. Then of course you have the guys like Adam Weidman, who had a couple of assists there, also had 5 loose balls in the game. It's not one guy getting 25 loose balls. You had a series of guys who had 5, 6, 7, 8 loose balls. I look at it, Capito, he had 8. Shane Jackson had 6 loose balls. Weidman and McIntosh both had 5 each.
Caleb Benedict 6.
Mm-hmm. Lyle Thompson himself had 7. It's just a continual thing where you can't rely and go after one guy. Because if you're tying him up, the other guy's coming in. It's unselfish play is why Georgia was still there to tie this thing up. And boom, away you go.
Georgia was the definition of spreading the love that game. And it was all over the board. It was all over the place. And it's something they're going to continuously hope to do if they're going to continue to string together wins.
That's the thing. They're just so deep. So deep in this roster. And Ali Krolovic, I was kind of on the fence about Joey Capito because especially with his health history, you never know with injuries. But man, like you're mentioning the 8 loose balls and a goal, that really solidifying that transition game for Georgia. It just elevates their skill level that much more.
Right. Now Ryan Benesh for San Diego had another great game. He's just picking up where he left off in Halifax, the fountain of youth, right? 2 goals and 2 assists. Westberg, 2 goals, 2 assists. Rob Hellier, 3 goals, 3 assists. But then you look at some of the other guys that you're hoping to get fired, and you need a little bit more. I did like watching Trent DeChico. He is going to make a name for himself in this league quickly. He had a goal and assist. He had 6 shots on net. He had 8 loose balls. He really, from what I watched in the summer, and he's just ramped it right up and elevated it even more where he's at now. He's going to be a big plus on this Seals team, especially midway through the year when the season starts catching up with some. He's going to be a very valuable piece on this team. Yeah, Jesse Gamble. There's a name that's familiar to all of us Toronto guys. With a goal, a couple of shots, a couple of loose balls, but that's a tank. It's a 5'8" or 5'9" tank that runs down there, and he'll run right through you. Yeah, it is amazing how strong that kid is. How strong that man is. But even Drew Belgrave, I still don't think we're getting the full thing out of him yet this season. Yeah, he was so in game 1. He also so in game 2. I just think that there's another gear to Belgrave that hasn't come out yet, and hopefully it comes out sooner rather than later, because I think that San Diego is going to need him defensively and transitionally, because he's quick. And if he can get it rolling, that brings up a whole new version of their game, because they're really not a big transitional team. They're more of a veteran team. So you're not going to see them running track meets back and forth.
No, they want, like I said, offense type of game.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that San Diego will be without Austin Stats for, I'm not sure, is he out the whole season? I know
I will go with forever.
Yeah,
he's
that's what I'm
done.
gonna. They lost Austin Stats for indefinite time. Obviously,
because even if he does settle his law stuff, there is that thing of getting over the border with a record, and how he did it before is beyond me. But I really don't think that with the charges that are pending or going on now, that
I haven't seen anything.
They're going to be very, very welcoming to him, and we wish him the best. And it looks like from all reports that I have seen that he is working towards getting the help he needs and getting himself righted. So let's just hope that that all works out well. But so much talent and so many other issues away from the floor.
Yeah,
a lot of you ever come back,
made
a huge suspension to serve, right?
Yeah,
he had the issue with the Firewolves in the playoffs right at the end of the season.
Yes,
if I remember correctly, tried to fight a fan in the stands. So
that was David Brock.
Oh no, that was David Brock.
That was David Brock.
That was the hell.
Yeah, he actually played this weekend, so he's already served his suspension.
Yes, David Brock.
Brock was busy trying to fight everybody on the floor.
Yes, he was. That's what it was. It was a very crazy time last season.
Yeah, and Halifax should add Halifax will be without Jake Withers next week too.
Yeah,
because he's got a 2-game suspension from that same playoff game. So another bonus in Sask's favor there.
Yeah, especially bringing with Nassau and how he's kind of stepped up.
Yeah,
that could be interesting.
So it'd be interesting, but to say that was a hell of a game. And another thing that's really enthusiastic is watching the Georgia crowds increase.
Yeah.
We've watched it where it was bring your favorite blue seat to work day. It was bring your child to work day for a bit. And, kudos to John Arlotta and the rest of his squad for having the wherewithal to stick it out. A lot of programs that they have put together out in Georgia now. I had Arlotta on my other show last year, and it was fantastic to talk to him about as the things grew from Minnesota to Georgia and starting it in a brand new market with people not knowing anything. Because in essence, we could have had another Fort Worth on our hands there. And they did it the other way and stuck with it, persevered, pushed forward, and have a number of guys that are living in market there to do programs with youth. Because I've always said it, you market to the youth. If you market to the adult for the party, you get 1 ticket sold. If you market to the youth, the kids are going to bring their parents, their uncles, their aunts, their grandparents, and they're going to get involved in it, and everybody's going to get involved in the game. That's how you build it from the ground up. Saskatchewan's a great example of how you do that in going into a new market, and you take a look at that in no time at all where they're getting 15,000 in a building. Shawn, that brings me to a whole other point.
Okay.
Recently, we've watched the Saskatchewan rush. Now, of course, Bruce Urban was at the helm as the owner when all the really good stuff was going on in Saskatchewan, and we're building. Recently, ever since the Saskatchewan Blades and their management have taken over, which is kind of like giving it to the baseball, I don't know, C level or whatever, A level, to bring things in, and where you do a little bit more zanier things and more interesting things. However, it doesn't work with the NLL.
No, because that's just the thing. When you're talking about the prisoners and this is Saskatoon Sports Group that own the Rush now, yeah, they own the Saskatoon Blades, which is a WHL team, not a professional team. They also own the Saskatoon Berries of the Western Canadian Baseball League, which is basically a summer ball league for NCAA players. So, again, not a pro league. And yeah, they've tried to. I'm going to try choose my words carefully here because I do have a great relationship with the Rush. We all do with this program, but they made some missteps.
Yeah. There's a few things in there. I'll take it right back to when they introduced their mascot and how they introduced him, and go forward on there. Caden, I know you have to get moving. If you have to get going, by all means, we thank you very much for everything you've done for us this week, and we look forward to having you on again next week with your Wolves Den, and I can actually be on your side with that one.
Absolutely looking forward to having the consensus.
And been able to prop myself back up again. And
looking forward to the consensus Albany picks in the pick'ems this week. 4 for 4 on this one, guys. This one I'm definitely getting right.
All righty. All right, Caden, thank you very much, and we will be seeing you next week. Have a great week. Thank you very much for your reports, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Absolutely, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. I don't know what else I can say, but let's go Firewolves, huh?
All right.
Have a good night, guys.
Now, Shawn, you were saying,
yes,
we start this back with the mascot unveiling, and even that was weird.
That was just like first of all, you put up to the fans to name the mascot. What do you think's going to happen? Well. Yeah, the lead runner was Horny. And we all kind of knew that was the lead name. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we get Rowdy. Just out of nowhere.
Well, thank goodness they chose that.
And even then, it didn't make a mistake. You had a mascot already with Bruiser the Bulldog.
Yeah.
I think there was nothing wrong with him. I know they were going through the rebrand. And then even then, there's like some games it was Rowdy, some games it was Rowdy and Bruiser. And it was very confusing.
Also, it was the beginning of the exit of Hulk, who was a big part of the early days of the Rush.
Well, we'll get to that. That was a little bit different why he got through that, just because it was becoming too much for him at that point. But there was a line. Yeah, that's I know he's done a lot with, like, that's a professional, like, graphic suit that he put together. It gets warm in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I guess then we kind of move on to the schedule reveal this year. And they just basically went out to a bar, got a bunch of drunk people to read the schedule off of just shot glasses, and it was a disaster.
Amazing.
Yeah,
it was just unprofessional. It was a bloody disaster, and I don't know what the social media team was thinking on that one.
We get to the schedule reveal.
Then we get the
announcement of a schedule, the leaked schedule.
The leaked roster. Yeah, the leaked roster, where it was basically just Rowdy chugging beers and peeing in the snow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to make matters worse, they doubled down on that after all the comments of people so upset about it by showing a guy who was watching the whole thing the entire time, and they put that up on social media, basically double downing and keeping the thing going.
Right.
Why do that?
A lot of the time, us in social media and us in, media, we're going to get comments from people. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever. But what's rule one of this is you don't make the news. We cover the news, right? In other words, we're not going to engage with comments that are.
Well, think about the comments. Even at that point, Gary, was a lot of those comments were longtime season ticket holders and real supporters of the team saying, "What are you guys doing?"
Yeah,
it wasn't just like a few here and there. It was.
But when you're engaging with your base and you're not engaging in a professional way, or should I say, engaging
positive
in a positive way is another word. Yeah. It's detrimental to your brand and detrimental to you building on your brand. And word spreads like wildfire, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, it sure does. I mean, I'd say most of those comments, by season ticket holders and longtime supporters of the team were made out of genuine concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, hey, this is, most of the crux of their argument was, hey, this is not an accurate portrayal of our fan base. So,
yeah,
why is the social media team portraying, Rush fans as, a bunch of, violent drunks who, seem to just not care what anyone thinks,
right,
of how they act.
But I think the line for me was crossed with the next one. They reposted a social media comment from someone, and we'll get to who it was in a second, who said that basically Rush fans should punch Messenger in the mouth. And they're being jokingly saying this should punch Messenger in the mouth for missing that open net if they lost that game. And the Rush called it by far the dumbest thing on their social media.
That was more or less what I was getting at, is you don't engage in these things.
Well, here's where it crossed the line for me. Is it ended up that we're talking about the Rush Hulk, and I guess because he put it out publicly himself, it was Kevin Ohms who said that. The Rush Hulk himself. He has been a supporter of this team since day one, a huge supporter, a big pusher of this franchise, especially with everything he's done with the Rush Hulk. And that's how you treat him?
Yeah.
That crossed the line.
Well, hopefully they've learned a few things over the last few mistakes. Because you don't want the league starting to meddle into your marketing and things like that, because we haven't done it since the mill, right? And we're watching things like that happen in the PLL, where they want to get rid of a coach, so the other guys stand up and the whole coaching staff of Chaos walks out, right? So we don't want to get down that road.
And that's what really, really scares me, especially heading into this home openers. You need butts in the seats.
Well, yeah.
And I'm scared to see if this crowd.
Especially when they haven't been, flourishing as in years past. Because of teams and other things. But you have a good team, and hopefully, you have a great crowd for opener.
Yeah.
I mean, they're turning a corner, and I think some of us had them, just preseason pick, privately making the playoffs.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, I agree.
It's very concerning, and I mean,
it's concerning because if the fans are feeling alienated, they're not going to buy tickets, whether it's a good team or not.
Yeah, if you're turning a fan off, then
that's what scares me. If this keeps going down this route, there's a market in Saskatchewan. We've shown there's a market in Saskatchewan. They can fill that building, but if you don't market it right, we saw how Bruce Urban marketed geniusly. Absolutely geniusly when he came in. Like, you can turn a head without seeing the Rush logo in Saskatchewan.
I got off a plane in Saskatoon, and I already had a polar bear meet me on the escalator
with a Rush jersey on.
Rush jersey on, and at the bottom of it was a Saskatchewan Rush ad. This is before I even got out through into where the people are. In the hotel, there was another polar bear in a Rush jersey that met me. It was everywhere. Let alone having a, originally with the shop downtown, and then their own place where they also had a brewery and a humongous merch shop to get anything, as well as you can get your tickets and head office right there, and anything you needed, everybody was there for you. So, they did a terrific job. So I'd hate to see all that go to waste.
Yeah, just a couple of things I'd want to add. We talked about, the possibility of the NLL getting involved. I mean, there were some comments on the last of those posts where people were tagging the NLL and saying, hey, are you going to get involved here? Are you going to do something about this?
Mm-hmm.
So we may be at that point already. And I hate to use this as an example, but look what happened with the Oakland A's, where fans just decided, okay, hey, you're going to move the team or whatever. We're going to do everything we can to screw the owner over by not showing up, until the very end.
Yep.
And, they were playing home games to
Well,
the same kind of crowds we'd see.
Hey, what's funny? We talked about it too. We talked about that with the Rush social media too, because they've done some great stuff too, like when they put the Beach fights out there, or even that Teen Wolf thing that they did with the Firewalls. Genius, great. But as soon as you think they're making steps forward, they take 2 steps back.
Yeah. The roster reveal, the other part of the roster reveal, was great with the just the media day promos from the league.
Yeah. Well, let's hope they've settled themselves in. I'll leave it there for now. We'll keep everybody up to date on what's going on. Hopefully, we have no news to report, because no news in this case is good news.
Yes.
Just a reminder to everybody: we are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we are on Thread, we are on YouTube, as well as we're on Instagram Live. And please check us 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, because things are always changing, and we have our fingers on the pulse of the situation at all times. Almost all the recaps are up from the weekend. The last couple will be up beginning of the week, and it's been a great little run so far. So brings us over to last words. Shawn, I'll give you the first kick at the last words for this week.
As kind of mentioned, home opener this weekend in Saskatoon. Really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Mike, last words to you.
Yeah, a little uptick in games. We're getting 7 games next week. Every team is in action, so can't ask for anything better than that.
So true. Toronto, West Georgia. Oh boy. I certainly hope Tuesday is a barn burner of a practice.
Toronto over or under 5 goals.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gary.
I hope I'm talking about this abundance of offense that just came out of nowhere, and I hope that the injury bug stays away, because it's hit them pretty hard. But anyways, that's for next week. Remember, we are on every single week at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we thank you all, as always, for your patronage and your kind words and everything else. And it is a pleasure to see everybody live at the arenas and everywhere else we get to see y'all. And drop us a line. It's great to hear from all you. And take care. And until next week, for Shawn Slaght over Moose Jaw, for Muffler Mike in Connecticut, I am Gary Groob in Toronto. Remember, keep your sticks high. Keep your spirits higher. Until next week, have a great week, guys.